Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the podcast, Life is a Story We Tell Ourselves. This episode's life story comes from a friend and former colleague, Clay Phillips. Clay had a long and distinguished career with California State Parks. Now retired, he is about to embark upon a near impossible journey of playing 50 rounds of golf in all 50 states. Wait for it. In just 50 days. Yes, you heard me right. So why would anyone undertake such a daunting task? Let's get right to it and ask our guest. Welcome to the program, Clay.
Hi, Don. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So why 50 and 50 and 50? And who in the world is Clay Phillips? And what motivated you to undertake such a daunting task?
Well, 50 and 50, 50 just has a nice panache to it. And I'm if I have any weaknesses, actually I have many weaknesses, but probably foremost among them is an addiction to golf. It's a very cruel mistress. It gives great delight and but cruelly gives great pain. And Don, you know that as a golfer yourself.
Right.
I've been playing it forever and will never, ever, ever, ever master it. But I do love it. I love the game. And so that's part of it is some people hear that you're going to play 50 rounds of golf in 50 days and they just cringe their faces up and think, why would anybody in their right mind do that? I'm probably not in my right mind, but other people would hear that and be golf addicts like me, and their eyes would glow and glisten, and they get really excited and go, "Oh, can I come too?" And so it's just different people. But I'm doing it for a few reasons. I not only because I like golf, not only because I'm retired and always like to challenge myself as other people do, and want to just see if I can do this. It does sound pretty exciting to me, but there's a deeper reason, and that is seeing it as an opportunity to both raise the awareness of and raise funds for easy access to clean water around the world. And that passion really began about 20 years ago. I was on state parks business, kind of stranded at an airport for a few extra hours. And maybe this is why I'm doing the 50 and 50 and 52 also, is because I love to explore. And so I was exploring the airport and came to a kind of throwaway corridor, and the airport had decided to put some money into decorating the walls. And in this particular case, they decorated the walls with interpretive panels that talked about the lack of easy access to clean water for millions of people around the world. And that was news to me. And it was shocking. And it was a really well done educational set of panels. And so I just thought, wow, that is insane that something I take so much for granted is such a big deal elsewhere on the planet. That just doesn't seem right. And I let that sit in the back of my head for many years. Well, fast forward and did nothing. And fast forward to a short-term mission trip I was on about 4 years ago in Nepal. And we were doing some pretty minor post-earthquake help there. And one of the members of our team is this friend, Dick, who is an avid senior basketball player. Plays in leagues. He's in his late 70s, and he's passionate about basketball, and he's passionate about this particular school in Guatemala that he visited every year for a long time. And he would put on basketball camps for the kids, and it would always frustrate him that he could not do everything or as often as he would like because it rains a lot in Guatemala. And so he just kept gnashing his teeth over that, and finally thought, well, what can I do about that? And so he and three buddies raised enough money to build a sports pavilion an outdoor sports pavilion so they could play basketball in the rain. And he did that by shooting a basketball in all 48 states in a Guinness Book of World Record time of 8 days, 4 hours and 32 minutes or something like that. And when he told that story, that kind of triggered in my mind, well, what would be a parallel for me? Well, it didn't take long for me to kind of connect the three dots. One is I really got excited about the idea of zooming around the state and figuring out strategies of how to hit all the states, because I love planning trips. I'm doing a lot of that for friends now in retirement. So I love road trips, and I love instead of a school in Guatemala, for me it was this need for water, and then connecting that with golf. So hence the idea of 15-50-50 came up. And at that time I was in I had retired, but I had been brought back to work on the state parks transformation team. And we had the blessings of getting to work with a Class A consultant team from Deloitte. And in the off hours at lunchtime, right about at this time, I would tell them, I says, well, this is what I'm doing, and I'm this, and boy, those consultants, they're always thinking, they're always strategizing, and they're always asking all the good questions. And so these brilliant people from Deloitte would ask all these piercing questions. Well, what about this, and how's this, and all the kind of questions that probably some of the listeners would be asking as well. Right. And so that prodded me to help craft an approach that I kept tweaking, and actually still this last week I tweaked a little further. But anyhow, so that's where it's from.
Well, I'm really interested in this aspect of water. So you mentioned Guatemala. So, and I lived in Belize, right on the Guatemalan border, for a couple of years. This was way back in 1973, and things were pretty primitive then. But we're in the 21st century now, and I guess I'm wondering, what is the water situation that you're trying to solve, and why here in the 21st century is there still such limited access to water? You would think that would be a problem humanity would have solved a long time ago.
Yeah, you'd think, wouldn't you? I mean, and actually in some ways, that's what draws me to this issue, is that I am not about to say that providing easy access to clean water is the most important big cause on the planet. It's not. It's in the tree of many great causes out there. But what makes this distinctive is that it is a relatively simple fix. It's just money to provide water access. And in most locations where there isn't easy access to clean water, there is a solution, and all that's missing is money. And so your question is a good one. And if I could have a spot on answer to it, I would be a much smarter person than I am today. But I think, I mean, why places like Bangladesh and India and Honduras and many parts of Africa don't have easy access to clean water, probably has a lot to do with things that are way above my pay grade and intelligence. Things like global equity and greed and things like that, and overpopulation or population in the wrong places. But I will tell you this, that it is a big, daunting problem. The two big snapshots I'd like to provide are these. Over 2 million people every year die from dirty water. And of those over 2 million, and sometimes it's much more than that, depending on drought conditions, of those 2 million, over 40% are kids under the age of 5. That's a difficult number for me to wrap my head around. The other factor in all this is the investment of time it takes for people in these areas to go get clean water. And in Africa alone, over a billion hours are spent by people just transporting water.
And that's
Typically
a billion hours in a year, or
in a year, yeah, over a billion hours in a year. Um, that's that's transporting water on average 6 kilometers, uh, and not a lot of water, a minuscule amount compared to what we use here in the U.S. And it's not always very good water, but it's water. And so when that happens, we're talking about a serious dent in the economy of a country. When you take people out of the equation of being productive in their farms, or being productive in whatever trade they're actively doing, and instead spending hours each day just getting the necessity of water, it affects an entire region's economic health. And in most cases, it's women and children that are doing this. And so families suffer, kids' education suffer, everything suffers. So the collateral effects are huge of not having easy access to clean water. And it really is, it gets me excited. It's kind of like I consider myself a lazy do-gooder. I I like trying to help this situation because I know that the um, the change is huge with very little effort, and it only takes money.
yeah.
So
And we should probably clarify for our listeners on the billion hours a year. We're talking about person hours, the
yes,
number of people that spend a certain amount of hours over the course of the year.
yes,
That just adds up to more hours than you might think. They're not a billion hours in a year, but
right.
but we're talking about person hours in a year. In any event, um, let's talk about the golf a little bit. So this is a fundraiser
Mhm.
that you've decided to. What's the structure of the fundraiser? How does that work?
Yeah, I did my research. I looked at, there are a lot of good charities that are addressing this problem, and and I finally settled on two. One a Christian charity and one a secular charity, because uh, I just I want everybody's money, and I know that some Christians want to give to a Christian organization and some non-believers want to give to a secular organization, and that's awesome because I found two that are good at each, and in fact they know one another, and at times they partner with one another. So one of them is called Project Blue, and it's associated with the Covenant Church of America, and that's a denomination that I attend, headquartered in Chicago. And it was through them that I went down and saw the work of both Project Blue and the second charity, which I'll talk about in a second, down in Western Honduras about 2 years ago. And it was a great trip, just a great trip, for me to become more than just an armchair, advocate for clean water, but to see it happen. And I have at least one good story I'd like to tell you, if we have time, from down there. But so Project Blue is one of the charities, and the other charity is Water First International, and they're headquartered out of Seattle. And both charities do a really terrific job of making sure that whatever improvements they do are sustainable. And they accomplish that by creating a strong sense of ownership by the recipients. If you are not willing to participate in the installation of a water project, you're not going to become a recipient of a water project from Water First International. And if you're not willing to participate as a water board member of your water system, you're not going to be a recipient of a project. And it's brilliant. After I was down there just for a short week, I became convinced that these people that are the local leads that are supported by Water First and by Project Blue, providing technical support, the local leads are they should be up in the U.S. Doing seminars on community engagement because they're just brilliant people. And so those are the two charities I chose because of their success and their longevity. Because I've heard figures that anywhere between 30 and 35% of water projects fail after 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that somebody from the West decided to do something really good, and they spent $15,000 to install a water well and a pump in this village, changed people's lives, and then went on to something else. And the people whose lives they've changed don't have the wherewithal to manage that project. That's not the case in any Project Blue or Water First International projects. So the way that it works as far as giving is I have a website, and in that website it has a tab for donate, and you can learn more about each charity, and you can just simply push a button and donate through that
Mm-hmm.
method.
So are the donations tied, some of them, to your successes as a golfer along this 50
Well, yeah,
and 50 trip?
yes, they are. And I must add that uh, because I see this as such a self-indulgent activity, because I'm an avid golfer and I get, fairly giddy about doing it. I've saved up the money to pay for this whole thing. So I'm going to pay this amount no matter what. So any donations don't go to help me play golf. That would just feel wrong. But all the donations go to the charities. And yes, to try and entice people and to motivate me, I've added a number of options to pledge. People can pledge an amount. There's a form also in the on the website that you can make up your own pledge. You can make up something. I don't know, I can't think of anything right now, but there's a ready menu of pledges, and I have had people that are pledging an amount of money for each round that I don't curse. I've had people pledge money for each round that I play in the rain. I've had people pledge money for each state that I don't get a speeding ticket in, because after all, I will be in a hurry. And the more typical things you might expect, I've had people pledge money for each birdie, each par, each round over under 80, things like that.
I see. So you have mapped this out. Let's talk about the details, because I think some of the people are listening and still going, I don't believe this. I just told somebody this the other day, and they just looked at me and said, "You're wrong. That's not going to happen."
Well, give me their email, and I'll report back, because they may be right. In about 3 weeks, I might collapse and die, and my estate will say, "Yes, you were right. He was wrong." But I think it's workable. A lot depends on my prep, my body, a little bit of luck. There are some things that could upend this, and we can talk about that if you're interested. But I'm the strategy is that I am going to be leaving my home August 17th, driving up to Portland, taking my time to drive up to Portland, and hopping on a plane, staying a few days in Hawaii because I can, and then on August 24th, day one, I play golf in Hawaii. That evening, I hop on a plane to Anchorage, Alaska, play golf that day in Anchorage. I leave that same day, which is really killing me because Alaska is my favorite state on the planet. I'm going to be there for about 8 hours, and that's it. Hop on a plane from Anchorage, fly down to Portland for day 3. I play golf in Portland, and then from then on, I'm in my little car, and I drive all 48 states. I've become a master at nibbling at states. I love panhandles. Spokane and Coeur d'Alene are within a few minutes of each other, so I can pick off 2 states pretty quickly there. And yet there are some states that are really, really big, like Montana and Wyoming. And so I'm not playing one round each day. Instead, I'm playing 50 rounds over the span of 50 consecutive days, which means that there are 7 days where I'm not playing any golf because I'm driving a long ways across New York or across Wyoming. And then there's some days I'm playing 2 rounds of golf, like from Sioux Falls to Sioux City, which are right near each other.
So explain that again, because I was going to ask you about that. So there are days you'll have off, days you'll play more than one round of golf per day,
Yeah.
and how does that end up equaling 50 rounds in? So that way you'll end up playing 50 rounds, but it'll be over a 50-day period.
Right,
I
right.
see.
August 24th to October 12th is 50 days. And I will have played 50 rounds of golf in those 50 days.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. So will you have on your website a little progress map, a little GPS progress map so people can watch where you are?
Well, I have a map on there now, right now. There's a the route tab on my website, and yeah, I think I could just put a little happy face that moves along across the country.
Mhm.
The other thing I would add, and this maybe is going to make people even more aghast, those that suspect it's not possible, is that 85% of the time I'm going to be on 2-lane roads.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is twofold. One is I love 2-lane roads. I love backcountry road trips where you actually get to see America and you see small towns, and in some ways, I kind of feel like this is a post-pandemic celebration of the return of the American road trip, and maybe even, maybe this is too grandiose, but networking, the isolation that we've all experienced over the past year, and just kind of connecting us, diverse places, areas, people, and you do that by going from town to town to town, not zooming by everything on the interstate. The other reason I'm doing it is I'm absolutely sure I would fall asleep and crash into a pylon somewhere if I just did the whole thing on an interstate. So I'm trying to stay awake. And even though the 2-lane road approach may mean that I'll be up behind the wheel quite a bit more, um, it makes
Right.
me more excited about the long drives.
So what about injuries? What are your do you have contingencies for injuries or
Yeah,
golf courses closing or
right. Yeah, there's so many things that can go wrong on this. I I have said that if 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 there's a hurricane that closes an entire region to golf, then I get a pass on that day. If As long as the golf course is open, I'm playing golf. Whether
Mhm.
it's, because courses stay open in the rain, but
Mhm.
they close down in lightning storms, and
Right.
they close down if there's a foot of snow, which could happen in Anchorage.
Mhm.
Uh, Also could happen late in my, like on day 42, I'm in Colorado, and but it's in October, so could snow
Right.
there. So yeah, I give myself a pass, and maybe I don't finish in August 12th, but August 13th. But that's only if the course is closed. As far as injury, um, I'm seeing a sports therapist. She's got this tired old 66-year-old body to, you know, I have a regimen that she's requiring that I do twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, primarily flexibility and mobility.
Mhm.
So hopefully that'll minimize injury.
So do the folks that make ibuprofen, are they sponsoring you?
You know what? I think I wrote I wrote to over 60 companies just like that. I was thinking just like you are, Don. Boy, this would be a great thing for all of these ibuprofen people, Tylenol, whatever. I'll take whatever. I will prostitute myself gladly for the cause and take whatever company sponsors me. I wrote to the CEOs of over 60 companies, and did not get a very big response. I did get one company out of Buffalo, New York, that was very intrigued by it, and is sponsoring me. Um, that's Encore Golf, and
Mm-hmm.
they make online. They sell high-end golf balls online only, and they sent me the golf ball, and I had a career round with it, so I am a big fan.
Oh.
Uh, so Encore Golf.
So has this been done before? This 50 and 50 and 50?
Yes, sadly it has. So I lose some of my panache over this. I know of I know absolutely of one person that's done it, and I found that out simply because I I I wrote to a golf course trying to get them to comp the fees, because if they comp the fees, I'll redirect that money to the one of the charities. And that course said, "Well, no, we're not going to do that because we just had so and so do it 2 months ago."
Mm-hmm.
So there was a gentleman from Kentucky who did it, and we've been in contact, and kudos to him. He had a great charity, St. Jude's Children's Hospital, and
Mm-hmm.
he stayed on freeways because he had a Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to stay where he could charge up, but he's very jealous that I'm taking the 2-lane roads. And in my defense, he's just a young pup. He's only 50 years old. So I've got 16 years on him. So while this might not be the first time it's been done, I suspect I'm the oldest geezer to do it.
Right. So back to the water issue now, because this is an important issue, and I have two things as we kind of wrap up here. Do you think there'll ever be a time when we'll get to 100% clean water for every human being on the earth? And then a corollary to that is, of course, everybody blames everything that's happening now on climate change, and I'm certainly not a climate change denier by any stretch of the imagination, but what effect do you think climate change has had on the accessibility of water?
Well, to the first question, um, I no, I'm not. I can't see it being 100%. I mean, any evil that befalls the world is never going to be 100% solved. But I'm okay with that because I can only do what I can do, and I'm delighted with the idea that this effort might actually change one family's, if not an entire community's lives forever. When I was down in Honduras, we got to see visit a lot of the families that were recipients of the water. And in one case, I visited with Mercedes and Porfirio, and Porfirio, the woman, was there, and I asked through the translator, because I don't speak Spanish. Could you ask Porfirio just to name the top 3 things that her family has benefited by the fact that now she has this sink at her house with clean water, and she's not going way down in that valley to get that muddy, dirty water? And so he asked the question, and we almost fell backwards when her hand started waving and she started spewing rapid fire Spanish. And she went on and didn't catch a breath for it seemed like 5 minutes. And that whole, I didn't need to know Spanish. She had so many reasons. And when she finally took a breath, I turned to the translator and I said, I think that was more than 3. And he nodded, and he kicked himself later for not having pushed record so that we could capture that. But later he kind of captured just the litany of things that affected. It wasn't just about her time. It was about her time with her family. It was about her time in the community. It was about her helping on the farm. It was about so many things changed just by fixing that one piece of their lives. And it was the highlight. That moment was the highlight, and it captured why it's worth pursuing this, even though it probably won't be solved 100% all over. It could be, but I don't think it will be. I don't think humankind is all um, wholehearted in being concerned about the needs of others.
Well, I was reading on your website, so to reiterate some of the things you're saying there were just so many things that clean water, having access to clean water and not having to spend time, hours, traveling to where you might be able to get water, frees you up to do other productive things in the community you live in.
Right, exactly. Well put. There were these women that connected because of their water board responsibilities, and that connection led them to create a community bank. And that community bank led them to realize that they all individually spend a lot of money on eggs for their family baking needs. And so they said, well, why don't we go together and create this co-op to raise hens? And it was awesome because that's in a society where it's really male dominated, and for women to take charge of something is fairly still revolutionary. And that was happening, but it all started with clean water. And then there were many other stories like that.
I understand. Well, Clay, good luck. I mean, you've certainly bitten off quite a bit to chew here with this 50 and 50 and 50. And I'm actually hoping to join you somewhere along the line here. I've looked at your schedule, and I'll be in the United States during the time that you're traveling. So I'll stay in contact and hopefully join you for a round of golf.
Oh, that would be awesome. And just for your viewers, your listeners' benefit, if they just Google 50 and 50 and 50 golf, let a number 4, and then written out water. So 50 and 50 and 50 golf for water, they'll find my website. And I'd love for them to become engaged in it and follow me if they want to.
Well, we'll be linking our website to your website, and this podcast will be available soon, and we'll certainly mention the challenge again, and you're raising funds for such an important cause. I really appreciate it. Clay, thank you, and we'll certainly have you back on the program at the end of your journey.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Don.
It's been awesome talking to you. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Life is a Story We Tell Ourselves. You can subscribe to the podcast at lifeisastorypodcast.com. You can learn more about Clay Phillips and his attempt to play 50 rounds of golf in 50 states in just 50 days at our website, lifeisastorypodcast.com/golf. Stay safe, share happiness, and remember, never stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing.